to you a range of tools and techniques to help you take back control, deal with overwhelm, and make sure that you're not failing at the important things. Now, before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who may be here with us today. More importantly, I'd like to acknowledge the role of traditional owners and Indigenous people of Australia as the first knowledge creators and their very deep understanding of the land, the sea, and the sky forms. If you joined me yesterday, you would have heard me talking about how important it is that we need to take time to stop and to make space in our diaries or in our lives or whatever to be off duty, to be when we're not accountable to others, where we can use that time for whatever we need to. And I likened it to being on vacation when you've finished your holiday and you're feeling like you're ready to go back to work. Your holiday's been that good. The other thing I'll liken it to is, and I'm sorry if this upsets anyone, but I have been known to have a glass of wine or two, and I've found that there's that feeling you have, and it's much more, would you say, much bigger, excuse me, bigger as an older person than it was when I was younger. But my recovery the next days are not that great. And so what I talk about is the day after the day after. So when I've had a big night on a Friday, I might feel a bit dodgy on the Saturday, but the day after on the Sunday, I feel amazing. And I'm pretty sure it's just the contrast between feeling rubbish one day and great the next. However, I actually think what happens is when we take a moment to rest and we take some time out just to be still or just be on our own or not be beholding to someone, when we do come back to being on duty again, we seem to be a bit more invigorated. And I certainly know that's the feeling for me. I try to be a bit sacrosanct with my weekends and try and make at least a full day, if not half a day, where I'm just restful, where I'm not really doing anything, not thinking about much work, whatever. And then I make that second day. I find that second day, I can just plow through stuff. And so it would be interesting. It would be probably an interesting PhD for me to do at some point, which would be how much more productive we are after we've had a full day of rest. Do we get 2 days work done in one day because we've rested? Now, certainly there's plenty of research done by people like Francesco Cirillo, who did the Pomodoro method, and he did the research that says 25 minutes of focused behaviour and 5 minutes break is more productive. But I'd be interested to see if there's more extended research on that. And if you know of anything, please feel free to let me know, pop it in the chat or whatever. But today is, now that we've had a chance to stop, one of the things we can do in our stop time or any time is to take stock of where we're at. And this activity is called Wipe the Mind. And it's somewhat inspired for me by an activity I did a long time ago. It was in a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And she talked about activities. Basically, the book was about writer's block. And at the time, I wasn't a writer. I hadn't written books. I wasn't writing anything. But I was interested in her philosophies around how you shift the mind, how you shift the brain from being blocked from any form of thinking. And one of the activities she talked about was something called morning pages. And so her suggestion was when you wake up, first thing in the morning, you have a piece of paper by the bed, and for 30 minutes, you just do a stream of consciousness. Whatever comes into your head, you just write it down. Stream of consciousness. No thinking about it, no judging yourself. In fact, I remember one time writing, for some reason, I'm thinking about giraffes, and I have no reason why I'm thinking about giraffes. I guess maybe one day I wouldn't mind going to Africa, and Africa would be great, and well, then away I go. And so you just follow that stream of consciousness wherever it goes. You just do that for a full 30 minutes. Now, I did that for a month, and after about the second or third day, you stop feeling self-conscious about something that no one's ever going to read anyway, and you start relaxing into it. And the experience for me for the day is it's a little bit like you wake up in the morning and it's like someone takes the lid off your head, dusts out the cobwebs, and pops the lid back on again. And now you feel like you're fresh, and my mind is just so much more focused when I've done morning pages. So you could choose to do that. You could choose to do the full-blown Julia Cameron model of morning pages, or from a productivity perspective, one of the things I recommend people do is before they start their day, they wipe their mind of everything they've got on their mind. And so typically this comes out a bit like a to-do list, but it's not really a to-do list. More on that in a minute. So what we do is we literally write down everything on our mind that we need to get done that day, or something that's taking up some of our attention that day, and we just write it down. And it can be anything from, I need to change the light globe in the laundry that's blown, or I need to pick up some food for tonight's dinner, or I need to get a report written, I need to call Bob, I need to send this email. Whatever it is, you literally do a brain dump of everything. And what you're trying to do it for about 30 minutes, because it can take that long to clear all the stuff that's in the front of your mind and get to the stuff that you may not have thought about or you've forgotten about. So it's called Wipe the Mind, and we literally write everything down. Now, tomorrow I'll tell you what we're going to do with that. But the circuit breaker exercise that I want us to do today is just simply do that and try and get into the habit of doing that every morning around wiping your mind of everything that's on your mind. And now part of the reason why I suggest this and where this comes from a productivity place is it's related to yesterday, the statement I made about the currency of leaders is not time. You know, we talk about, we feel a bit clever when we say, you know, time is the most important currency, but actually attention is our most important currency. And George, there we go, awkward moment. George Miller, back in the 60s, did the studies around how much we can hold in our short-term memory or in our conscious mind at any one time. What he called chunks of attention can we hold? And he came up with the magical number 7 plus or minus 2. And so what that really is telling us, that if we look at this as a bit of a bell curve, so the average person can hold 7 chunks of attention in their mind, and some of us can hold 9 plus 2, and some of us can only hold 5 minus 2. And so the average is about 7. So how this plays out in our world is that if we're trying to hold things in our mind, hold things in our conscious attention, we can only hold 7 things before we start to forget things. And any of you who have ever been shopping and had a shopping list, and maybe there were 8 items on the list, and you come home and you're trying to remember them, beg your pardon, not on your list, you're trying to remember them, chances are you'll forget one. And I remember there's been times when I've had a lot going on in my world where I can barely hold 3 things in my mind when I go shopping. And so this notion of our chunks of attention, and if we think of attention being the currency of leadership, this becomes really important about how we clear out any chunks of attention that are in there that are not being used to be either productive or not used to be more helpful with us, be more useful with us. And so this wipe the mind exercise is clearing out chunks of attention that we're trying to hold in here. But by doing it by the moment you think you've finished, just sit there for a little bit longer. Just sit there for a bit longer, because usually what happens in that first flurry of activity, you'll probably fill several A4 pages in the first couple of minutes, and then it'll stop. And that's typically clearing the stuff that's been more front of mind. But if you just pause for a moment and then take a sip of tea and wait for a little bit longer, and then you may get, not always, but you may get another surge of things that come, which have been sitting further down, maybe more into our subconscious. And so we do this, so we're clearing our mind of attention. So it has 2 great benefits. One is now we've got it all on paper and we don't have to remember it, and now we can manage it. And the other is we've now cleared or emptied a little bit of space in our head, which means we can be fully present to the people that we may need to be fully present to. My friend Lynn Kazali refers to this in our mind as like a dump truck. And if you've ever seen a dump truck, you know the job of the dump truck is you dump a bunch of stuff into it, and then you this gets to a point where you can't put any more in and you have to go empty stuff out. Often if you think about your own dump truck in your head, your brain is your dump truck in your head, often what happens is we just keep trying to fill stuff in. And so what happens is stuff starts to fall out. And we don't know what's fallen out until it becomes critical and we forget something. And in my experience, I've forgotten, I've gone to the airport and forgotten things like my wallet. And you're not going to get far these days without your wallet full of stuff. And that's for me because I'm overwhelmed and I've got too much stuff in my dump truck. So Lynn says one of the best ways to clear out your dump truck is to externalize it in some way, is to get it out of your head. Now, Lynn's a great proponent of visual capture. So if you're interested, go have a look at lynnkazali.com. She's got great tools for visual capture of things. I'm also a little bit in the visual space, but for this exercise, it's simply, I'm okay with just putting a list down on a piece of paper, because it is, as Mandy says in the chat, it is just about clearing out the clutter. What's interesting about this is it's not that different. If any of you have ever taken a moment to declutter your wardrobe or your garage or maybe a kitchen pantry cupboard or something like that, and the best way to do it is to pull everything out, wipe things down, sweep things up, give it a bit of a vacuum, whatever you do, and then you begin to put things back in the order that you like. And that's kind of what we're doing with this exercise. Step one is to just clear the clutter, get everything out of the brain. And then what I'll share with you tomorrow is how we put it all back in a way that helps us be a bit more able to focus better and able to concentrate. So there's no tool for today, because really all you need is a piece of paper so that you can just write a list on it. So you don't need to download anything from me to make that happen. And all you need to do is grab a piece of paper and start doing a stream of consciousness. It's a little bit more focused than the Julia Cameron stream of consciousness, because we don't really want to write about giraffes in Africa, if that's what you're thinking about. For this one, what we want to do is a stream of consciousness about the stuff that's on my mind that I need to do, that I'm trying to hold on to, that I'm trying to keep track of somehow, empty it all out of the head. And can I say, if you were to do this exercise first and then take an hour of just break time where you're not beholden to anyone, what I think will happen is that you'll suddenly have space in your brain to creatively solve some of the problems that have been sitting on your mind, because now you've created room in here for some other things to surface. The other thing you've done, in some respects, is a single point of focus or concentration, which is a way of accessing your alpha brainwaves. And when we access our alpha brainwaves, that's often where creativity sits. So that's why when you have a shower, I say to people, when do you have your best ideas? I'll often say in the shower, because in the shower, we kind of get into a daydreamy state. And that's after you've done 20 to 30 minutes of your stream of consciousness of grabbing all your stuff, you'll be in a semi-daydream state in that moment. And that's when you have a real opportunity to use your brain to solve something quite useful, or something that's been on your mind for a bit. So it's a bit of a double whammy. So that's today's tool. It's a wipe the mind. All you need is a pen and paper and a bit of space. I would say if 30 minutes starts to feel too long, it's like anything, just start where you're at. If it takes you 5 minutes, then just take 5 minutes. If it takes longer, take whatever you need to take. But just start where you're at and begin to capture everything and try and empty out the head of everything that's on your mind. And then tomorrow, we'll begin to put things back in a more sorted way. So a fairly short one today. I'm not sure if you can tell. I've got a bit of a croaky voice and a bit of a head cold, I think, happening. Actually, I think what it is kindy cough. I visited last weekend my niece, and she has a son, my grand nephew. He's at kindergarten at the moment, and he brings home all sorts of interesting coughs and bugs and things. And I think from cuddling small children, I have picked up kindy cough. But you'll be pleased to know I'm off to get a COVID test this afternoon. One must never be too complacent with these things. But it is giving me a little bit of a head coldy sound today. So good that today is a fairly short one. And thank you for hanging in with me for this long. And I will see you tomorrow when we start looking at how do we sort putting this information back into our minds in a more sorted way that can be helpful, useful, and just help us with better productivity. Because I reckon it's about time, right? It's about time we learned how to use these muscles a bit more effectively. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming today. And if you're listening to the recording of this, oh, just one more thing. If you did miss yesterday's tool, here is the code if you missed it yesterday. And I'll also put the link into the comments of this one today. Otherwise, see you tomorrow. I've got a couple of tools for you tomorrow. So there you go, 2 tools for tomorrow. Okay, see you then.